I had 2 golden retrievers back home, PJ and Charlie. And unfortunately, PJ died from a paralyzing stroke in the middle of the night, and only 10 days later, I lost my other dog, Charlie, to sudden heart cancer. Seeing this happen made something painfully clear to me. Even in dogs that seem perfectly healthy, things can go downhill fast. And if that's true for healthy dogs at home, it's even more true for the thousands of post-op dogs sitting in clinics across Canada right now. And the numbers back this up too. 81% of all anesthesia-related deaths in dogs occur after surgery. Isn't that brutal? Somehow, the operating table isn't even the riskiest part of the operation. Recovery is. From Waterloo to Surrey, BC, we've spoken to several clinics, and every single one of them shared the same stories and the same fears. There is a fatal blind spot in the industry. Dogs are left unmonitored and vulnerable when complications strike hardest. The scale of this issue is huge. I mean, almost the majority of Canada, if not more, has dogs. I mean, how many of you in the audience right now have a dog? Yeah, there's 8 million pet dogs in Canada, which funny enough is actually more than the number of children in Canada. Right, like this is crazy, and this needs to be fixed. But still, for some reason, 2% of clinics are open overnight. Only 2%. The rest of them have no way to continuously monitor the millions of recovering patients that they see. This leaves patients with 3 horrible options. First, they can spend thousands of dollars a night at an ER. They can be unmonitored in the clinic until 8 a.m., or they can go home with their untrained owners. None of these are very good options. But despite this being a growing problem, nothing has really changed that much. The industry is stagnant. Back in the 1980s is when this issue started to first be studied and documented. And back then, clinics still relied on an on-call model. The standards of care were way lower, so they could. It wasn't until the early 2000s when we started to see emergency hospitals pop up across Canada, but since then, there has been zero innovation. The biggest reason for this is staffing. There are 1,200 open veterinary positions in Canada, and we only graduate 450 every single year. This gap will never be filled. This means that a single technician is monitoring anywhere from 8 to 10 different recovering dogs. That's twice as many patients as a human nurse. This is brutal. And knowing that dogs tend to instinctively hide and mask their pain, you can see how easy it would be for one technician to miss subtle signs and changes in vitals across that many patients. And the next issue is culture. COVID-19 didn't just add 200,000 dogs to the population, but it created this generation of pet parents that expect human-grade care, ICU-type care for their pets. And the third pressure is technology. There's a paradox here. Yes, veterinary medicine has advanced dramatically. I mean, surgeries that were once rare or impossible decades ago are now routine. But this actually makes more animals exist in this fragile post-op state that requires this super attentive monitoring. You'd expect that technology would have filled this gap, but it hasn't. On the one side, you have these traditional monitors with wires and probes like ECGs. But dogs have fur, dogs move, and they bite at things. Those just aren't going to work. And on the other side, you have these newer remote devices that are far away or use acoustic sensing. But those don't work either. Their accuracy is horrendous. And time again, vets have told us in all of our interviews that accuracy is paramount. And without it, there's no way they're putting a device on a dog they're legally responsible for. And it's not that the technology doesn't exist or that the market isn't ready. It's that these systems have yet to be applied to a dog's anatomy and a vet's workflow. Operational attempts fail as well. I mean, you can't hire staff that don't exist. We already talked about that. And co-op models where these clinics share after-hour care are fragile and brittle, and they failed in places like Saskatchewan. And of course, you can't send them home to the owner. They don't have the medical expertise to monitor these patients. A real solution needs these 3 things. It must fit seamlessly into clinical workflows, meet these clinical accuracy standards, and finally, bring back the same type of continuous monitoring that's normal in human medicine into animal care. At H.A.L.O, we believe that there should be no pet that dies unseen in the dark. So we ask that you help us light up the night for veterinary care. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Team H.A.L.O. I've thought about human-centered design and humanity-centered design dog-centered design is new, so thank you for raising this problem. I'm not keeping track of who's next. I believe Nabil, if you'd like, you can kick things off.
Yeah, just in terms of like how you quantify this numerically in terms of the numbers, did I miss something, or did you address the size of the market?
Yeah, so
Size of the market, here you go.
it's difficult to talk about it without just openly telling you what our solution is. But if you want like the numbers perspective, Canadian households spend $7 billion approximately on the veterinary industry. And that goes up to $9 billion when you start to factor in like corporate, purchases and, clinic to clinic transfers and whatnot.
And is that on the operation, like the operational side?
That's just all veterinary revenue. There's other numbers that we can get to. I mean, like specifically for monitoring devices, the global market is, I think, $500 million. And if you kind of like extrapolate that to Canada based on our kind of global GDP, you kind of get close to, I think, like, $30 million. But those would be the best numbers to quantify the scale of this industry. I quantified it using the 6,000 clinics. That's how many clinics there are in Canada, but a very, very short percent of them, like about 100, are actually open overnight, can offer this continuous monitoring.
That was actually the biggest thing playing for me as well. I suppose to follow on to that, like any data to speak to from like other countries, or like most of your focus has been in Canada?
Yeah, most of the focus has been in Canada. I know the UK and Australia face very, very similar problems. I mean, their insurance models are nearly identical. They're both English speaking. They both have very high pet ownerships. The US is the same way. In fact, the US, I think, is like $40 billion. But of course, we're here to solve this problem in Canada first and foremost. There's a bit more competition in the States, but in Canada, there's really been nothing that's happened. The best data we got was in Surrey, BC, where people are trying to innovate a little bit more. But we've innovated in human medicine. I don't see any reason why we can't accept that the future is here in Canada.
I'm curious about how you viewed, overnight care outside of a vet, but you think of these as businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially it's healthcare, but it's a business. And so where does the threshold of like what I, the dog owner, will pay come into how you identify this problem?
Yeah, of course. So right now we're focusing B2B. I mean, that's good for a lot of reasons. I'm sure many of you would definitely agree. So on the vet side of things, they have one number that they've told us that they would pay for like similar solutions like this, but that'll just kind of talk too much about solutions. So on the owner side of things, which is what you asked to more specifically, they're more than willing to pay things like $100 a night for this better care. And their other option is they pay thousands of dollars, or that the dog might just stay alone for 12 hours in the clinic. So I think anything sub $1,000, people would be a lot more happy with. And if we can bring that down to closer to $100, then these vets can recuperate costs within 10 visits, which is very, very, reasonable and attainable for them, knowing that most vets carry like 5 to 10 dogs overnight.
Okay, we have time for one more if somebody has a follow-up.
I guess just a little bit more into any perspective on the insurance side of things as well, because I feel like that would factor a lot into this problem, given that there is that follow-on risk even after an expensive surgery.
Yeah, for sure. What we definitely don't want to do is remove the authority from a vet. I think that's a problem with a lot of competitors right now, is they try to do it all. They're trying to bring AI into this and that, and they take away the vet's authority, which for a business side I think is horrible for them. They have a lot of liability now if they're trying to make these bold claims that nothing's ever going to go wrong in the dogs, especially knowing that every single review we've seen is the accuracy is bad, we're missing this, we're missing that. So from the insurance side of things, we'd expect that it would kind of just be like a replacement for those costs. I mean, most of the insurance is going to these really risk-adverse situations. I think the number is like $500 billion globally in the pet insurance market. In Canada, though, we don't really have much insurance at all. I think the insurance, pet insurance specifically in Canada, is like closer to 1%. So right now it's not a huge concern about how that all plays into it, because most Canadians just don't have it. And the small extra cost of like $1,000 a night for them to be able to monitor with like these solutions that we're thinking of is something that I think is pretty reasonable for most Canadians.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Okay. We really